Right, in this video we're going to set up our character and get him ready for rigging. So you might have your character looking like this. You have your lights. If you're using my lighting file, make sure you unhide everything. And first thing we're going to do is we're just going to clean up the file. So I'm just going to delete my lights. Make sure all you have in here is your character. And like me, you might have multiple objects and things like that in your scene. Sorry, let me just clean this up. I had a couple duplicates in here, like that. So, you might have, again, make sure your stuff is nicely cleaned up. That kind of stuff. Alright, so we got one of everything in here, and like me, your character might be split up into a bunch of different pieces. So like your head, your face, I had my armor all detached, so I might have this guy detached like this for unwrapping, for painting, that kind of stuff. So if you do have a character that's all split up like this, you're going to need to attach them all to one mesh. So I'm going to select my body here because he's got the nice pivot on the bottom and all that. So I'm just going to go into my edit poly mode. I'm going to scroll down here under edit geometry, click attach. I'm just going to click, you can either click on the things in the viewport here or click on the little dialog beside attach called attach list, and it'll just bring up all your objects here, and I'm just going to attach them all together. Say OK to match material IDs because we're using two different textures. And there we go. We have one solid character, and that's exactly what you want. You want a nice one big piece and all that. So a couple of things we're going to have to do before we can start rigging, and really make sure you do this and you're thorough with it because it can really mess up your rigging, and trust me, that is the last thing you want to do or have to redo. So I'm just going to go to the front viewport. I'm going to hit F to go to the front, or you could use your wheel here. I'm going to put on my grid. I'm going to make sure my character is nicely at 0, 0. My character's feet are a little bubbly here and there. I didn't really spend the time to flatten them out. I should have, but I didn't. I can still do that with the shift tool if I really want. I can just kind of try and mush them into place. Again, this is something that can be a little dangerous using the shift tool, but can also be really handy if you're careful with it. So there we go. Let's just say that's pretty good. I mean, it's not perfect. My one big toe here is a little funky. I don't know what happened to him, but he got messed up at some point. Alright, so let's say that's good. So number one, my character is nicely on 0, 0, or nicely on the 0 plane, nice and flat. Next thing we're going to want to make sure is he is nicely kind of centered to your grid. Hit G if you need to get your grid back on and off. Make sure he's make sure he's kind of centered with the middle of your body here, so something like that. If you hit L, go to your left viewport. Just make sure that black line is kind of traveling more or less along the center of your character. And then make sure your pivot is at 0, 0, 0. So once you have your mesh aligned to where you want them to be, go here, go to your hierarchy, go to Effect Pivot Only, and then click none of these guys, but have this on. Select make sure your Move tool is selected. With that on the bottom here, you'll see your inputs here for your X, Y, and Z, and if they have any numbers in them, just right-click on the little arrows and make sure that it's all 0, 0, 0. Alright, so that looks pretty good. We should be good to go soon with that. And one last thing you're going to have to do, and this is super, super important, is make sure that your character A is the right height, and then that we X-form him and make sure he's not scaled. So if you click your Scale tool and right-click on the actual Scale tool, all of this needs to say 100. So if my dude's like that, that's going to be bad. We're going to have to find a way to reset that. But before we do that, I need to make sure that my character is the right height for the game, because you guys are all going to be importing your characters into Unity, and I know we've had some problems with scales and stuff like that. So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to go to Customize, unit setup, and make sure that you are set on metric and on meters here. So make sure those are on and hit OK. And the next thing I want you to do is just go to your create menu, go to standard primitives, and just make a box. Doesn't matter what how wide it is, it doesn't have to be too big. And just in here, in your modifier menu, under height, just make sure that's 2 meters. And in your front viewport, just go to your character and make sure he is more or less 2 meters high, like this. So my hair is a little higher, and like my horns aren't really part of my head, right? I wouldn't use that to calculate my height. So just make sure he's 2 meters tall. Once you're happy with that and he's 2 meters, if you've had to scale him up and down like this, if I had to scale him a little, that's perfectly fine. But once you're good and ready to go, select your character, go to the utilities menu here, the little hammer, select reset X-form, and hit reset. Selected. That's going to add, I clicked it a bunch of times, but it's going to add an X-form modifier to your character. So I want you to right click on your character, go to convert to an edible poly. And that's it. Then you'll be ready to rig. Your height will be set up properly, your units, all that stuff is now good to go. And make sure you don't have any modifiers left in your stack. It should just be your character and then edible poly. And one last thing you're going to do before you're ready to go is just name your character. So, Goblin. And there you go. We are ready for rigging.